much that I couldn't watch it because the idea of animal cruelty to me is very difficult as well. And Luka posted videos of himself on the internet killing kittens, which is not only horrifying but serial killer behavior. Okay, so I am going to give you a background of Luka and the crime that he committed. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my hair. In December 2014, after 8 days of deliberation, Luka was found guilty of first-degree murder of June Lin, who was 33 years old. June Lin was from Wuhan, China. He was a student at Concordia University in Montreal, Quebec. He was an undergraduate in engineering and computer science. He was last seen on May 24th, 2012, and his friends reported getting a text message from his phone at 9 p.m. that night, but no one heard from him after that. His boss became suspicious, of course, when he didn't show up to work the next day. 3 of his friends went to his apartment on May 27th, again my birthday showing up in a horrific murder story. And he was finally reported missing to the police on May 29th, 2012. On May 25th, a video was uploaded to the internet depicting June Lin's death. Police later found out that it was in fact real footage of his death. And I'm not going to go into anything further. I'll link some of the sources below if you'd like to read more about it. Multiple people tried to report this video to the authorities, but they thought it was a joke. They didn't believe the people who were trying to report this video to them. But finally, they figured out that it was authentic, and they figured out who the victim was. At 11 a.m. on May 29th, a package containing a left foot was delivered to the national headquarters of the Conservative Party of Canada. Another package containing a left hand was intercepted in a Canadian post processing facility, and it was addressed to the Liberal Party. A janitor discovered a torso inside a suitcase behind an apartment building in the Snowden area of Montreal. On May 30th, it was confirmed that the body parts belonged to June Lin. And the suspect was quickly determined to be Luka. On June 5th, 2012, a package containing the right foot was delivered to St. George's School, and a package containing his right hand was sent to an elementary school plots. He's a forensic psychiatrist, and I was confused as to why they would be allowed to post this on the internet. But he, I guess in criminal cases and with forensic psychiatry, they go through a whole thing where there's like a non-confidentiality agreement, which is the opposite. Oh my god. Which is the opposite of what you might think. Okay, so this starts out with a header, or not a header, but a cover page. It says, "Dear Mr. Leclerc, at your request, I have conducted a forensic psychiatric assessment of Mr. Luka Magnotta, specifically regarding the possibility that he may fulfill criteria under Section 16 of the Criminal Code of Canada. I understand that Mr. Magnotta has been charged with the following: first-degree murder of Mr. June Lin, indignity to the body of Mr. June Lin, possession for the purpose of fabrication of obscene matter, use of mails for transmitting anything obscene, and criminal harassment against Stephen Harper. Mr. Magnotta is alleged to have committed these offenses on or around May 25th, 2012. Mr. Magnotta is a 31-year-old single man who is currently detained at the Rivière des Prairies Detention Center in Montreal. He was arrested in Berlin on June 4th, 2012. He was extradited to Canada on June 18th, 2012, and has been detained since that time." So this is a very, very long psychiatric evaluation, and I'm going to read until I get tired. My computer is making noises. I hope you can't hear them. So this is the statement of non-confidentiality that I found, and I find this to be very interesting. So I first met Mr. Magnotta at the Prison Hospital Berlin on June 18th, 2012, at the request of the Service de Police de la Ville de Montreal. Mr. Thomas Barth, Mr. Magnotta's treating psychiatrist at the prison hospital, had insisted that Luka be accompanied by a psychiatrist during his return to Canada. Otherwise, he would not be released to Canadian officials. I had been approached and accepted to fill this role. Upon first meeting Mr. Magnotta, I immediately informed him of this role, specifically that I was present to accompany him during the flight to Canada, along with the police detectives who were placing him under arrest and would be processing him through the criminal justice system on his return. I informed him that although I was a psychiatrist and my role would be to monitor his mental state, his safety, and to give him medication that had been prescribed by his psychiatrist in Berlin during the flight to Canada, I would not have any treating role with him once we arrived in Canada. So that was very interesting to me. This forensic psychiatrist is not intended to treat any psychiatric issues. He's specifically used for the court. I informed him that due to the exceptional nature of this case, I could be asked to testify in the future regarding my role during his return to Canada. I added that any personal notes that I kept documenting my observations and his statements could become evidence in court proceedings. Mr. Magnotta expressed understanding and cooperated during this first meeting. However, during the flight to Canada, Mr. Magnotta expressed in a polite fashion there's a note here about the use of diagnostic criteria. The vast majority of interviews and collateral information in this case were obtained while psychiatric diagnostic criteria for mental disorders from the text revised 4th edition of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM-IPDR, of the American Psychiatric Association was still authoritative. Since May 2013, an updated version, the DSM-5, has been released. In keeping with current practices, and until DSM-5 reaches general acceptability within the field and in the courts, all diagnoses and criteria in this report will be formulated under DSM-IPDR. So there is a list of the sources of information that this psychiatrist used, and it's a very, very long list. He speaks to family members. He, of course, speaks to Mr. Magnotta or Luka. He speaks to his grandmother. He speaks to the police who interviewed him. Speaks to police in Berlin. Speaks to his sister, his lawyer, a former classmate of his father, a forensic toxicologist, the autopsy, the person who did the autopsy, just so many different people. So I'm going to skip over that very, very long list and get down to relevant background information. Mr. Magnotta was born Eric Kirk Newman on July 24th, 1982, in Scarborough, Ontario, the oldest child of Mrs. Anna Yorkin and Mr. Donald Newman. His parents were married shortly before he was born, at the ages of 16 and 17 years, respectively. Mr. Magnotta has a 10-month younger brother, Conrad, and a sister 5 years his junior, Melissa. Luka described that due to their age and socioeconomic difficulties, his parents moved around quite a bit when he was young. Early in his life, they lived with his father's parents, and later on with his mother's parents. His mother stayed home with the children, and his father supported them with a factory job. His mother preferred that the children not spend time with Newman family, according to Luka and his father. Luka's sister, Melissa, informed me that the children and their mother moved into their maternal grandmother Phyllis's basement after their parents separated and father left when Luka was about 9 or 10 years old. Later, they moved into an apartment along with his mother's boyfriend, Leo, in Toronto. Luka went to live with his grandmother Phyllis when he was 17 years old to escape the verbal and physical abuse of his mother's boyfriend, Leo. Luka described his grandmother as having doted on him and having preferred him to the other siblings. His sister and father later confirmed this. His parents and a brother were quite jealous of his close relationship to his grandmother. During his childhood and early adulthood, he would call his grandmother on a daily basis and came to feel that his grandmother was a mother figure to him. He felt like his mother was more like a big sister. At times, Luka stated that his grandmother had in fact raised him. She would often dress him in her clothes. Luka said that he went everywhere with his grandmother and slept with her when he was younger. When asked about his mother, Luka said that she was obsessed with cleanliness and often wore a surgical mask when he was young. He went on to describe excessive cleaning behaviors and her insistence that the children wash their hands repetitively, leading to skin irritation. At times, she would lock the children out of the car or out of the house. When they lived in Peterborough, he recalled having rabbits and her putting them outside outside in the winter, leaving them to freeze to death. He recalled begging her to bring them in and having the impression that his father seemed powerless to have any influence over the course of action. Mr. Magnotta recalled that when he was about 6 years old and still had difficulty not wetting the bed at night, his mother would put him in diapers. He recalled kicking and trying to resist her doing this. Luka also described his mother tying his brother to a chair in his room when he was bad. He recalled being afraid of his mother because she had sharp nails. He and his brother were homeschooled by her until they were almost in their teens, when his paternal grandparents insisted that the children enrolled in school. Luka stated that although he often has bad memories of his relationship with his mother, he feels conflicted. Often during our interviews he insisted, "She is not a horrible person." He was very preoccupied at times that his version of his childhood memories might tarnish his relationship with family members who he loved and with whom he wished to remain in contact. When asked to describe his father, he said he became an alcoholic because of the Yorkin family. He added that his father was never abusive to him or his siblings. His mother told him when he was younger that his father was jealous, had threatened to kill her, and would watch her with binoculars, but Luka did not believe this. His father was quiet while drinking, and he would sometimes play video games with him. His father was arrested at one point and was fired for drinking at work. The family then lost their house and had to move to a hotel when he was about 9 years old. They initially moved in with Luka's paternal grandparents. His paternal grandmother was upset that the children were not attending school. He said that at times school officials would come and check on the homeschooling. His mother would buy school supplies and books for them shortly before this. Upon his paternal grandmother's insistence, his mother finally registered them for school. Later on, his father began to have his own mental health difficulties, and his parents separated. The next heading is Past Family Psychiatric History. Luka stated that many members of his family, of his father's family, have had health and drinking problems. His paternal grandfather was aggressive in general. This side of the family was put together, respectable, and had money. Luka's father suffers from schizophrenia and has been receiving psychiatric treatment since Luka was about 12 years old. Luka stated that his father takes a powerful antipsychotic medication. The medication is clozapine, a particularly effective antipsychotic with many side effects, and early on in his illness appeared like a zombie. He was often in and out of hospital and thought that Luka's mother's family was trying to kill him. He was often in car accidents and had seizures. Luka recalled that his father slept and smoked excessively and had difficulty paying attention. At times, his cigarette butts would accumulate, and he feared that his father could burn the house down by accident. Luka stated that he was not sure if his mother had ever suffered from any mental health problems or received any treatment. In an early interview, he shared the belief that his mother secretly wanted the children to be abducted, and went on to describe an incident where he was fearful of a man outside and wanted to come back inside the house. His mother sent the children outside even though they said they had seen a strange man. He described his brother as a bad alcoholic who has often been arrested for drinking and driving. He has no relationship with his brother because he feels the latter is not honest, and he can't keep secrets, and he takes from others. He is selfish, and when I've tried to help him, he has said homophobic things. At one point, a second cousin by the name of Little Lupa travels coast to coast showing paranormal and alien paraphernalia, according to Luka. He went on to add that she told the Toronto police that he had asked her how to drug people, and that this was untrue. He added that she is a troublemaker and causes drama in the whole family. Okay, the next section is educational history, and I'm going to skip up to high school. Luka recalled that when he was in high school, he began to become very interested in Marilyn Monroe after discovering a book about her in the library and completing a book report about her. He began to strongly identify with her, and he watched all of her movies. When I asked why he identified with her so much, he said that he felt they had a lot in common. For example, she had been abused, and she is sexual. She posed in many magazines, as he did later on. When he was younger, he felt quite ugly, and when imagining himself being beautiful like her, he felt better. He also described that she changed her name to Marilyn Monroe, and he said he changed his name as well. He often thought of having cosmetic surgery done because she had done so, and he believed this would help him forget about the past and incite people to like him. He added, "When I think of Marilyn, it calms me down. I wanted people to understand and love me." Luka said that his family would talk about her, and his uncle had a picture of her. So, Luka did go to Thompson Internet College around 19 years old, trying to complete his high school degree. After about 4 months, he lost interest. In 2007, he attempted an academic bridging program at the University of Toronto, but could not understand any of it and dropped out after 2 weeks. In 2010, he attempted to become a real estate agent, but he was refused entry because he did not have his grade 12 equivalency. He said he couldn't do makeup classes because he couldn't concentrate. His educational records indicate that he had significant difficulties with spoken and written language, math skills, confidence, social interactions. When he was first enrolled in school in 1993 at the age of 11, he was described as polite, courteous, and introverted. During a psychological evaluation performed in 1995, intelligence testing measured his verbal performance and a full-scale IQ as being average. Mr. Magnotta, or Luka's cognitive abilities, were described as likely being a low estimate, given his newness to the educational system, testing, and his lack of confidence. He was noted to have difficulty with decision-making, problem-solving, and thinking for himself. He seemed to hold himself apart from other kids due to negative self-evaluation and high sensitivity to criticism. He seemed to be more comfortable in groups of girls. He seemed to be uncomfortable around emotions. Luka was evaluated as underfunctioning by at least 2 academic years and had language dysfunction, according to documents outlining his placement in a communications special education program beginning in grade 9. By 15 or 16, he continued to receive special education programming and was described as being hardworking, having a positive attitude, and showing good effort and home study habits. His oral language and math skills continued to be weak, however. His peer relationships were increasing his self-esteem. His grades in grade 9 through 12 were mostly between 50 and 75%, with failures in several classes. I spoke to Mrs. Leslie Burke, who knew Luka while they attended school together in 7th and 8th grade. They shared the same class in grade 7. He was in special education classes for reading and as a sad little kid who was small, immature, and odd for his age. He tended to spend time with other socially awkward kids or children with cerebral palsy. He was, in fact, almost too odd to be a target for bullying. He did not speak much, was shy, and was preoccupied with his hair that he slicked back and would not allow anyone to touch. He became agitated if others were in his personal space and was easily upset that other kids avoided him. The next section is the occupational history. Luka described obtaining his first job at the age of 17 after dropping out of high school. He worked for a temp agency, initially working on an assembly line, making pamphlets. He worked the night shift and often fell asleep. He only kept this job for a month. Later, he moved equipment out of a warehouse, but that only lasted about a week, as he was not physically strong enough. He then got a job from his uncle working at a deli. He only worked for 2 months as people complained about his sandwich making. He had difficulty getting to work because he often stayed up late and said he was not feeling well. At this point, he had begun to have symptoms of mental illness. At the age of 18, he worked at a grocery store and lasted less than a month before being fired. He was not able to understand the job. He did not show up at times, and he was feeling stressed. He then worked at a Great Canadian Bagel restaurant and lasted a little over a month, but the stress of the job was too much for him to continue. Luka stated that he was on welfare due to his mental health problems at the age of 18 or 19. During his 20s, he moved cities a few times. He moved to New York City in 2008, back to Toronto in 2010. When returning to Toronto, he tried to get welfare payments again. He moved to Montreal in 2011 and was able to obtain payments. Luka said that he worked under the table at times since his early 20s. He began working as a prostitute and quickly became associated with an agent in the sex trade. He tried working at a gay club as a stripper and attended to work in the gay pornography industry, but only succeeded in doing a few videos. He also tried working, doing other types of sex work. His relationship history is the next section. There are some things that I'm going to skip just to keep this video somewhat appropriate. As a teenager, Luka had crushes on both boys and girls, but he did not date. When asked, he said he was unsure when he had his first serious relationship, and he said that most of his early intimate relationships were purely physical. He went on to add that after some reflection, he had more of an emotional connection to a man named Ron when he was 25 years old, and this was his most serious relationship. He also had a relationship with a man by the name of Natter, who he met through his agent later on. Natter was not out of the closet yet, and he and Luka did sex work together. When asked to further describe his relationship with Ron, he stated that it was nice, and that he thought Ron loved him. They would often talk on the phone early in their relationship, and Ron would bring him flowers. Luka said that he would have done anything for Ron, and that he had never felt that much love. Despite this, his agent would tell Luka that Ron was just using him, and Luka admitted that although Ron may have loved him, he loved Ron more. The next section is his work sex trade in his early 20s. He thinks he may have been abused as a child as well. He may have been sexually abused as a child, but he isn't 100% sure on that. He said that he was motivated to do sex work because he lived in subsidized housing and was having financial difficulties, but he was ashamed of having to do this kind of work. And he initially did webcam work, but he felt like there were too many crazy people out there, and then started to work as a stripper. He said he was afraid to go on stage, and then he was forced to sexually, or to be sexual with his boss at the strip club as well. So he started prostituting as an escort privately with guys that he would meet at the strip club, and in the beginning he would have 5 or 6 clients a day. He said he used his earnings as an escort to help his grandmother because she was living on a small pension. He would give her $100 here and there, and once he gave her $1,000, he would buy her hearing aids or jackets. He recalled having promised her when he was younger that he would take care of her. He goes on to talk about how some of his clients would offer him drugs, and that it was very dangerous for sex workers, and many times they were raped or abused, and the police were really of no help. Some of his clients were also very violent. I don't know if I just said that. And they wanted him to take part in violent roleplay activity. He also tried to get into the adult film industry, but it didn't go well. He ended up being affiliated with some very seedy, very under the table film companies, and had some very traumatizing times with them. And then they talk a little bit about his sexual history, and I'm going to skip over that. We're going to go to his, again, I'll link this below if you guys want to read it. I'm just not going to read it out loud. So his past medical history, Mr. Magnotta stated in an early interview that he's in relatively good physical health, but has some stomach problems. He's never had any seizures, and he's never had a head injury. I asked Luka if he ever had cosmetic surgery, and he replied that he had a hair transplant and showed the scars. He also had Juvederm injections in his face, and he had his teeth whitened. Luka admitted that he exaggerated the extent of his cosmetic surgery in video auditions for a reality TV show. Remember, the mid-2000s was like the height of cosmetic surgery TV shows. It's crazy. I was looking it up the other day with my sister-in-law, and some of those shows were out of control. It was basically like, come on this reality TV show and we'll give you plastic surgery and we'll make money off you doing it. But here's this new nose. How do you like it? It's crazy. Anyway, sometimes he was rejected by clients, he said, because he felt too skinny. He just did not like the way that he looked and wanted to change it. He was very insecure. So the next section is his legal history. Luka reported that prior to the age of 18, he had never had any legal problems. He was arrested and convicted in 2003 or 2004 for fraud. Luka explained that he had been living with a family at the time. The son of the family encouraged Luka to date the sister of a girl that the former stores with this girl and to buy objects on her credit card. And Luka admitted that she was a bit sick and had a mental disability, and he and the son of the family he stayed with knew this. He admitted that this was selfish and they wanted things that they couldn't afford. Luka said he felt ashamed of this behavior and that it had been stupid. Although he may not have been mentally well at the time, he insisted that he could not blame his behavior on this, and knew that it was wrong to cause her these problems. He served 16 days in jail and then performed 9 months of community service. He was on probation for 1 year, and his conditions included taking his medication and following the recommendations of his doctor. Aside from this incident and having stolen food on occasion when he was younger, he has never had any other problems with the law prior to June 2012. When asked, Luka stated that he had never harmed animals prior to the incident when he videotaped the suffocation of 2 kittens. God. He stated that his paternal grandparents worked with veterinarians at pet stores, and he often went there with them. His grandparents had a dog and 2 cats, and he loved them. Even as an adult, he often had pets and bought clothes for them. He said nobody accused me of mistreating them. He added that he had even taken care of pigeons in the winter, keeping them indoors. He recalled being told that this practice was unsanitary and that he could become ill, but he was too concerned for them to care about this. He reiterated having been traumatized by the incident where his mother had put rabbits outside to freeze to death in the winter. He recalled at one point having 2 birds that were given to him by a boyfriend. He learned after they died that they were sensitive to drafts of air, and he felt badly he had not been able to take care of them. When he kept dogs, they were sometimes unruly and would either rip up or pee on the carpet. He would simply give them away if he was not able to manage their behavior. Substance abuse history. When asked, Luka responded that he was not a regular user of alcohol and did not like drinking very much, and it made his teeth hurt, and he can't take it with his medication. He would sometimes drink with friends, but often would just hold a beer at a party without drinking it. He had never blacked out and had never partaken in any problematic behavior while drinking. Luka stated that smoking reduced his anxiety and sense of panic at times. He added, "My cigarettes are always there for me when everybody else has left me. Smoking makes me feel like Marilyn Monroe's spirit is in me, like I am her." Luka stated that he has not used illegal drugs on a regular basis, but, like we said before, when he was escorting clients, he would sometimes use. Past psychiatric history. Luka informed me that the first time he ever consulted a psychiatrist occurred during his adolescence, when his grandmother became concerned about his behavior. She thought that he was on drugs. When asked to describe the symptoms he was having at the time, he replied that he was talking loud, hearing things, feeling scared. He said it was a blur trying to remember all the symptoms that he had had. When asked, he said that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. I asked Luka if he had had further episodes of his schizophrenia over the years, and he said he blocked it all out. When asked what he had learned about his diagnosis over the years, he said, "It is my voices and I get suicidal." Luka said that it was hard for him to accept that he had a psychiatric diagnosis because of fears that everyone would abandon him because of his illness. His father had become depressed when his family no longer wanted to see him after learning of his psychiatric illness. Luka said that he was embarrassed by his mental illness. He would not tell clients because they would think that he was was weird. When asked what might cause them to think that he was weird, he replied that he would sometimes panic or talk to himself while he was hearing voices. When asked to describe his experience with mental illness further, Luka explained feeling that Marilyn Monroe's soul was inside him at times. Because she had a lot of sex, when I dress up as her, sometimes I feel like she's making me more beautiful, like I have a connection with her because of her childhood. I love her so much. He would feel that she was doing things that he was doing. He wanted very much to, in fact, be her. His feeling of having Marilyn's soul inside him comes and goes. He went to Hollywood in 2008, kissed her star on the sidewalk, and visited her crypt a few times, causing him to feel particularly close to her. When asked if she had any special powers over him, he responded that she made him more sexual. I feel stronger when she's in me and beautiful when I dressed as her, and I have to know everything about her. I asked Luka if he suffered from symptoms of schizophrenia according to criteria in the DSM-IV-TR, in addition to hallucinations such as having delusions. Luka responded that he did not know, and when asked specifically about thought broadcasting, mind reading, or mind control delusions, he said, "I don't know, this is hard." He eventually mentioned that others could tell that he was sick because they would look at him in strange ways. At times in 2003 or 2004, he felt that people might be watching him with cameras. When asked if he ever had any ideas of reference, he gave a vague answer that seemed to indicate that he did not believe he had had such symptoms. During one interview in January 2013, Luka told me that while living in Harrison House, which was a group home, in 2003 or 2004, he made calls complaining about being followed and was threatened with arrest if he did not stop. Afterwards, he felt that someone in the government was watching him because he had printed out information about Aldrich Ames and Robert Hansen, notorious Cold War spies. He showed this to his grandfather. The belief that the government was following him came and went over the years. In 2007, it was particularly strong. He thought that his phone was being bugged and that he had to move every few months. He thought that he was being spied on because he was a hooker. A hooker, those were his words. They wanted to track where he was going. When crossing the border into the U.S., he interpreted customs officers asking about his criminal record as having some link to this. I asked Luka if he tended to take his medications as prescribed, and he responded that he did, usually. However, he was unsure about the year 2008. He said that in 2009, he was taking his medication and would have symptoms on and off. When living in New York City in 2010, he was taking medications, but a client took them from him for a few weeks before he was able to take more, or to get more. He was not sure if he took medications after moving back to Toronto in 2011, and he did not see a psychiatrist. He saw a psychiatrist at the Montreal General Jewish Hospital in April 2012, and prior to this, he had last seen one before moving to Montreal in early 2011. Mr. Magnotta stated that since moving to Montreal, he was not taking any medication regularly, but that he may have had some leftover risperidone, an antipsychotic, and temazepam, an anxiolytic or sedative. When he felt sick, he would take one or two of his risperidone or temazepam pills. He recalled hearing voices telling him to kill himself at times when living in Montreal, and he would wander around the city. He felt lost and scared and felt like he was being watched. He that people were looking at him out of their windows. He often stayed in his apartment and did not go to work because he felt scared. He even put tape over the peephole of his apartment door. He took medication mostly to help him sleep, and when asked, he could not recall the last time that he had taken any psychiatric medication prior to his arrest. Luka commented in February 2013 about having episodes of sleepwalking. Previous boyfriends would lock the bedroom door because of this. He would wake up and would be in the middle of eating something, or would wake up in the morning and see fruit cups empty. He commented on one occasion, waking up with tobacco and cigarette in his mouth and all over his clothes. I asked him if he was certain that he had been sleeping, and he answered, "It was the middle of the night. I was in a daze. I don't remember putting things in my mouth. It happened all the time. The smoke alarm woke me up. I had food on the stove, and I didn't remember making the food. Maybe I was awake but drowsy and then fell asleep." I asked him if he would have been sedated from using his medications or from taking drugs or alcohol, and he said, "No, I don't like drugs." These incidents started when he was living with his mother and stepfather during his teens. He described that they could recall at one point opening a lock and feeling like he was in a dream and ending up in the hallway. It was like I was watching myself do it, like a panic. I remembered feeling fear and being scared, and feels a little bit like an alien abduction. Upon inquiry, Luka said that he could not remember if he had episodes like this in May 2012. I reviewed the criteria for several personality disorders with Luka according to the DSM-IPDR. I started by screening for histrionic personality traits. He answered affirmatively when asked if he thought that he had a consistent pattern of attention-seeking and excessive emotionality beginning early in adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. He added, "I have a hard time when people leave me because I can't be alone. I feel abandoned. A lot of times I did escorting to be with someone because I felt alone." Luka endorsed feeling uncomfortable when he was in situations where he was not the center of attention, in particular when he was with his family. When he was with clients, it was not the same, and he did not necessarily feel this way with other people. When asked if the large volume of internet postings he made could be an example of him seeking attention, he admitted to doing so, but this embarrassed him. He explained, "I write things to make it sound like I'm a celebrity." I asked if he sometimes interacted with others in a way that was provocative or excessively sexual or seductive, and he said, "Yes, it's really important for me to make sure I look good. If I don't think I'm looking good, then I feel ugly." He was in agreement that he constantly used physical appearance to draw attention to himself. He said that perhaps with some people, he might have a style of speech that was excessively impressionistic and lacking detail, but not during interviews that he did with journalists. He said that he sometimes was theatrical or behaved dramatically, and this embarrassed him. In an attempt to avoid being hurt by other people's judgments of him, he had invented things about himself that were not true. Luka agreed that he is very suggestible and easily influenced by others. He said that he falls easily in love and has problems reading people, knowing if people like me or not, and I might consider relationships to be more intimate than they really are. I assessed Luka as well for narcissistic personality traits. When I summarized the general pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, and the lack of empathy that narcissistic individuals tend to have, he said, "I do care for others, but I've been conceited in the past into myself because I don't have confidence." I explored if he had a grandiose sense of his self-importance much as an actor or a model, and he tried very hard and needed for people to like him. When asked if he was preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, he reported, "I used to when I did interviews and shows, but then I started not to feel alone." When I asked if he believed that he was an important, famous, or powerful person at the time, he said that he did. Luka said that he did not believe that he was special or unique and could only be understood or should associate with high-status people, adding, "Look at my current friends." When asked if he ever had arrogant or haughty behaviors or attitude, he said sometimes, but not now. "In the past, when I was with clients who treated me like crap, I learned to be a bit tough to survive. They always want to push you to do more. They lie to you. They often walk all over you and take advantage of you. I tried to be someone else to protect myself." I asked Luka about borderline personality traits. He said that he would sometimes make frantic efforts to avoid being abandoned. He endorsed having a marked and persistently unstable self-image or sense of self. He stated that he was impulsive when it came to buying clothing or other articles related to his personal appearance, despite not necessarily having the money. He said that he sometimes was reckless in his sexual relationships, but more when I was younger. He described having a chronic feeling of emptiness. He did not endorse other borderline personality traits. I asked Luka whether he had a tendency to lie or try to manipulate others for personal gain or to obtain things, and he said that he didn't think so. When asked why he said this to his lawyer, that he had a son in Peterborough, he responded that he didn't know. He volunteered that he had been untruthful about his sexual orientation when he was younger. He wanted people to think that he was bisexual and not completely gay due to the negative attitudes he experienced from his family regarding his sexuality. Okay, so I am going to stop there. There's a lot more to this. I only read about 25 pages, and there are 124 pages. So if you guys are interested, I will read some other sections of it. Let me know in the comments. I appreciate all of you. I hope you're taking care of yourself.